A woman's tuition fund mysteriously vanishes from her account. Everyone blames her carelessness, until she discovers her sibling orchestrated the theft to push her into abandoning education for marriage. The morning began with a jolt that I will never forget. I had brewed tea, set my books neatly on the table, and opened my account app with the simple intention of checking the balance I had guarded for years. My eyes scanned the screen, and in an instant, the numbers that had once given me hope were gone. The account showed nothing but emptiness. My chest tightened and I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I blinked, refreshed the page, checked again, but the result was the same. My tuition fund had vanished. I sat there, frozen, unable to move. My mind raced back through the past week. Had I withdrawn something by mistake? Had I signed a paper I didn't understand? I replayed every errand, every visit to the bank, every moment I had touched that money. Nothing explained this disappearance. It felt as though the ground beneath me had shifted, leaving me dangling in uncertainty. When I told my family, their reaction was swift and cruel. "You must have been careless," my mother said, shaking her head. My uncle muttered that women should not be trusted with large sums. Neighbors joined in, whispering that I probably spent it foolishly or misplaced it. Their words cut deeper than the loss itself. I wanted to scream that I was not careless, that I had guarded that money like treasure. Instead, I stood silent, shrinking under their judgment, feeling my dream of education mocked and belittled. I refused to let their voices drown me. The next day I marched to the bank. The manager greeted me with polite indifference, flipping through papers as though my panic was a minor inconvenience. "No unusual activity," he said, tapping the desk. His tone carried pity, not urgency. I showed him receipts, withdrawal slips, every record I had kept. He nodded, but his eyes told me he didn't believe me. Each step I took inside that building added to my confusion. I left with no answers, only the weight of suspicion pressing harder on my shoulders. Determined, I retraced my steps. I visited the teller who had helped me last month. She shrugged, saying she remembered nothing unusual. I checked the ATM logs, the printed slips, the dates. Everything looked ordinary, yet the money was gone. People around me began to look at me with pity, as though I were a child who had lost a toy. That pity burned. I didn't want sympathy, I wanted truth. One afternoon at the market, I dropped a coin while paying for vegetables. It rolled across the dusty floor and a group of men chuckled. "See? Women can't even hold on to money," one of them said loudly. Their laughter echoed and I felt my face flush with anger. That single coin became a symbol of how quickly society judged women, how easily they dismissed our ability to manage our own lives. I clenched my fists, promising myself that I would not let their laughter define me. That night I sat alone in my room. My books lay open, their pages filled with dreams of lectures, exams, and a future I had planned so carefully. I stared at them, torn between despair and determination. The silence of the room pressed against me, broken only by the ticking of the clock. I whispered to myself, "Someone took what was mine." Saying it aloud gave me strength. It was not carelessness. It was not foolishness. It was theft. And I would find out who had done it. The following days were filled with small incidents that deepened my resolve. A neighbor's daughter came to borrow a notebook, and as she flipped through my notes she asked, "Why do you study so much? You'll marry soon anyway." Her casual words stung, but they also revealed the mindset around me, that my education was seen as unnecessary, even laughable. I realized then that whoever took my money might have believed they were doing me a favor, pushing me toward marriage instead of study. I began keeping a journal, writing down every detail I remembered, every conversation, every suspicion. It became my secret weapon, a place where I could organize my thoughts and track the puzzle pieces. Each entry gave me clarity, and slowly I began to see patterns. One evening I overheard two neighbors talking about me. "Poor girl," one said, "she should have known better. Money slips through women's fingers." I stood behind the door, listening, my heart pounding. Their words were not just gossip, they were a reflection of how society saw me. That realization fueled my anger into determination. I would not let them be right. I started asking quiet questions. I spoke to the clerk at the bank again, pressing for details. I asked my cousin if she had heard anything unusual. I even checked the small box where I kept old receipts and notes, hoping for a clue. Each step felt like walking through fog, but I refused to stop. At night, I replayed the moment I saw the empty account. I remembered the way my hands trembled, the way my throat tightened. But now, instead of despair, I felt a growing fire inside me. I told myself that this was not the end of my education. It was the beginning of a fight. The disappearance of my tuition fund was more than a financial loss. It was a test of my strength. Every insult, every laugh, every dismissive glance became fuel. I knew someone had stolen my future, but I also knew I had the power to reclaim it. And so, I sat with my books, whispering again, "I will find out who." This time the words carried not just hope but a promise. The night I whispered to myself that someone had taken what was mine, I felt a strange calm settle over me. It wasn't peace, it was resolve. My mind sharpened and I began noticing things I had overlooked before. Small details, tiny cracks in the surface of everyday life, started to reveal themselves. It began with my siblings' sudden interest in my account. At first their questions seemed harmless. "How much have you saved now?" they asked one evening, pretending to sound casual. I brushed it off, thinking they were curious. But the way their eyes lingered, the way they pressed for details, unsettled me. Later, while tidying their room, I noticed a slip of paper lying carelessly on the desk. My bank details were scribbled across it. My stomach tightened. Why would they have that? I hadn't given it to them. That paper was not supposed to leave my drawer. I tucked the paper back, pretending I hadn't seen it, but suspicion grew like a shadow. I carried it with me, heavy and unshakable. A few days later I visited my aunt. She welcomed me warmly, but her words carried a sting I hadn't expected. "Your sibling says you should think about marriage now," she said, pouring tea. "Studying is fine, but isn't it time you settled down?" My chest burned. So it wasn't just idle talk at home. My sibling was spreading this idea to others, planting seeds in the family. My aunt's tone was gentle, but the message was sharp. My education was being dismissed, my future rewritten without my consent. I walked home with those words echoing in my head. My sibling wasn't just careless with my trust. They were actively shaping a narrative against me. That evening I decided to test them. I asked casual questions, pretending to be lighthearted. "Do you think I should keep saving for tuition or maybe use the money for something else?" I said, watching their face closely. They laughed nervously, eyes darting away. "Well, maybe you don't need so much for school. Marriage is more important, isn't it?" Their quick change of subject confirmed my fears. They were hiding something and they knew I suspected. Days passed and I kept my silence, but my eyes were open. One night, while walking past the veranda, I heard hushed voices. My sibling and a family friend were speaking in low tones. I stopped, hidden in the shadows. "If she marries, everything will be solved," my sibling whispered. "Education only brings trouble." My heart pounded so hard I thought they might hear it. The theft wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. My sibling had stolen my tuition fund to push me into abandoning my dream. I pressed my hand against the wall, steadying myself. Betrayal had a sound and I had just heard it. From that moment I knew I needed proof. Anger alone wouldn't save me. I began quietly gathering evidence. I checked phone records, searching for unusual calls. I found numbers linked to the family friend I had overheard. I dug through drawers, finding scraps of paper with notes about my account. Each discovery was like a piece of a puzzle, fitting together to reveal the truth. I couldn't do it alone. I turned to my cousin, someone I trusted deeply. One afternoon I sat with her under the neem tree in our yard. "I think my sibling took my tuition money," I whispered. Her eyes widened, but she didn't laugh or dismiss me. Instead she leaned closer. "Tell me everything," she said. Together we began piecing the story. She promised to help me watch, to listen, to notice things I might miss. With her support I felt stronger. We devised small plans. She would casually ask questions, pretending to be curious, while I checked for inconsistencies. We shared notes, whispered updates, and slowly built a case. One incident stands out vividly. My cousin mentioned my tuition fund in front of my sibling, pretending she thought I still had it. My sibling's reaction was instant. A flicker of panic across their face, a stumble in their words. "Oh, she probably spent it already," they said quickly. My cousin glanced at me and we both knew we had caught another crack in their story. At night I wrote everything down in my journal. Dates, times, words, expressions. My journal became a secret record of betrayal, a weapon I would one day use. But the deeper I dug, the heavier the burden became. I couldn't shake the image of my sibling laughing with that family friend, plotting my future as if I were a pawn. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone so close could betray me so deeply. The pain was sharp, but it fueled my determination. One afternoon I found another clue. A small notebook tucked under my sibling's bed contained scribbles about expenses. Among them was a line that made my breath catch, transferred from her account. My hands trembled as I held the notebook. It wasn't detailed, but it was enough. Proof was building piece by piece. I began noticing how my sibling avoided me. They no longer asked about my studies. They no longer looked me in the eye. Their silence was louder than words. My cousin and I decided to test one more thing. She asked my sibling directly, "Do you think she'll go back to school now?" My siblings smirked, shaking their head. "No. That chapter is closed." The confidence in their voice chilled me. They believed they had won. But I knew better. Each discovery strengthened my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for my dignity, my right to choose my own path. The betrayal was deliberate, calculated, and cruel. Yet with every clue I uncovered, I felt the fire inside me grow. My sibling thought they had stolen my future, but what they didn't realize was that they had awakened something far stronger in me. The will to expose them, to reclaim what was mine, and to prove that no one could decide my life but me. That night I sat with my journal open, pen in hand. I wrote one final line before closing it. "The truth is mine to reveal." The night I wrote, "The truth is mine to reveal" in my journal, I knew the moment was close. My hands trembled as I closed the book, not from fear but from anticipation. I had gathered enough proof and now it was time to strike. I didn't want a quiet confrontation. I wanted the truth to echo in the walls of my home, to leave no space for denial. The opportunity came during a family gathering. Relatives filled the courtyard, their voices rising in laughter, the clinking of cups, and the smell of fresh bread drifting from the kitchen. I sat among them, my heart pounding like a drum. My sibling moved around confidently, smiling, unaware of the storm I carried inside me. I waited until the chatter softened, until everyone's attention could be caught. Then I stood, holding my journal and the small notebook I had found under my sibling's bed. "I have something to say," I announced. The room fell silent, eyes turning toward me. My sibling's smile faltered. I opened the journal, reading aloud the dates, the notes, the overheard words. I held up the slip of paper with my bank details, the notebook with the line, "Transferred from her account." Gasps filled the air. My aunt's hand flew to her mouth. My cousin nodded firmly, confirming what she had witnessed. My sibling's face drained of color. "This is nonsense," they stammered, voice shaking. "She's making it up." But the evidence was undeniable. The silence that followed was heavy, pressing down on them. Their denial crumbled under the weight of truth. I looked directly at them, my voice steady. "You stole my tuition fund. You tried to decide my future for me. But you failed." The shame on their face was something I will never forget. The way their eyes darted, searching for escape, the way their shoulders slumped as whispers spread through the room. Instead of breaking down, I stood taller. My voice carried across the courtyard. "I will continue my education. Even if I must rebuild from nothing, I will not stop. My future belongs to me." My words shocked everyone. Some stared in disbelief. Others nodded slowly as if realizing the strength I carried. For the first time I felt powerful. Not because I had exposed the betrayal but because I had reclaimed my voice. The gathering ended awkwardly. People left in hushed tones, whispering about what they had seen. My sibling avoided my eyes, slipping away into the shadows. I didn't chase them. My revenge was complete, not through anger but through truth. The next morning as I walked to the market, a neighbor approached me. He had heard the story. "You are brave," she said softly. "If you need work, I could use help at my shop." Her offer was unexpected, but it felt like a door opening. I accepted, grateful for the chance to save again. Each coin I earned carried more meaning than the stolen fund ever did. It was proof that I could rebuild step by step. Working at the shop brought new strength. I learned to manage accounts, to deal with customers, to stand firm when people tried to dismiss me. One afternoon a man scoffed, "Why work so hard? You'll marry soon." I smiled calmly, replying, "I work because my future is mine." His silence was sweeter than victory. At home the atmosphere shifted. My sibling kept their distance, their shame lingering like a shadow. My parents, once doubtful, began to watch me differently. They saw the determination in my eyes, the way I carried my books with pride. Slowly their words softened. My mother even placed a hand on my shoulder one evening, whispering, "Perhaps you are right to continue." It wasn't an apology, but it was a step. I poured myself into study again. Nights were spent under the dim light of a lantern, pages filled with notes, my mind alive with ideas. Each word I wrote felt like defiance, each lesson a step toward freedom. One evening as I closed my books, I walked past my sibling. They sat quietly, head bowed. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Carrying my books proudly, I walked past them, my silence louder than any insult. My revenge was not in harsh words. It was in proving that no one could steal my future. Days turned into weeks and the whispers in the neighborhood changed. People no longer spoke of my carelessness. They spoke of my strength. Children pointed at me saying, "She studies even after losing everything." Their admiration warmed me, reminding me that my fight was not just for myself but for every girl told her dreams were foolish. The shop became more than work. It became a symbol of resilience. My neighbor trusted me with more responsibilities, even letting me manage the accounts. I felt proud, knowing that the very skill my sibling tried to strip from me was now being sharpened daily. One afternoon as I balanced the books, I realized something profound. Revenge had begun as a fire inside me, a need to expose betrayal. But resolution came in quieter ways. In the steady rhythm of saving coins, in the pride of carrying my books, in the respect slowly growing around me. I didn't forgive my sibling, but I no longer carried the same burning anger. My revenge had transformed into something greater. Proof that I could rise above betrayal, that I could rebuild stronger than before. The final act of resolution came when I stood in front of my family, holding my books. "I will not stop," I said simply. "This is my path." No one argued. No one laughed. The silence was acceptance. And so I walked forward, past the shame, past the betrayal, past the whispers. My books in hand, my head held high. My revenge was complete, not in destroying my sibling but in proving that no one, not even family, could steal my future.